Czardas by Monti is an important milestone for violin students. After 3 or 4 years of playing Bach and Mozart, where everything has to be exactly as it's written on the page and strictly according to the rules, all of a sudden we're in a new world of freedom. Freedom with the notes, freedom with rhythm, and freedom to express ourselves emotionally, to let go, to let it all hang out. For some people, this is a glorious moment. For others, perhaps for most people, perhaps for you, it's uncomfortable and scary. Help! What do I do now? And it's even more uncomfortable because in this music, freedom and abandon are not only allowed, they are necessary. You can't just play what's on the page. The music falls completely flat. Of course, when you get right down to it, you can't just play what's on the page in Bach or Mozart either. But somehow their greatness shines through even the most abominable performance. Perhaps this is one of the things that makes great music great. Whereas a piece like Czardas is just pathetic if you don't play it with style and verve. Rubato. There are a couple of basic patterns that give music an improvised feel. And for the most part, the patterns of rubato are derived from the even more basic patterns of musical phrasing. One of the most common patterns is where we have a group of fast notes leading to a longer note and coming to rest. Here it is at the beginning of Czardas. In order to heighten the improvised feel, we play the fast notes even faster, and the long note even longer, going forward, and pulling back, and forward, and back. Now we have a longer gesture, starting slowly and going ahead, and pulling back. Within that longer gesture, we have this very small unit, which has its own rubato. Along with the basic rubato pattern, we have the basic shape of crescendo and decrescendo, to an extent that might seem grossly exaggerated. The long notes will often have a nuance of their own, either a crescendo or a diminuendo. Did you notice that I changed the bowing that time to make the crescendo on an up bow and the diminuendo on a down bow? By the way, this opening is normally played on the G string, but for the moment I'm using a preliminary fingering, or a practice fingering in the lower positions, so I don't get distracted by the difficulty of the G string. I recommend this kind of practice. It frees you up to concentrate on the expression and to overdo it, which is so important for practice purposes. One of the things that gives the music its improvised feel is the way it's constantly changing. It's unpredictable, flighty, capricious. Now it shouts. Now it whispers. Now it's happy. Now the world is coming to an end. Here it is, jumping for joy. But now we're not so sure. Listen to the way this phrase wants to linger in the middle of the sentence. At some point, preferably close to the beginning of this learning process, we should have a reality check by playing the entire first section with a metronome. Even in the freest music, we need to know what is actually written on the page and be able to play it convincingly. This is part of musicianship. Slides are an essential part of the style of the Czardas. Let's go back to the beginning, this time on the G string. Light finger pressure during the slide, making sure that at the moment of the slide, the violin is supported by the chin and shoulder, so that the left hand is completely free to move. We need to sneak the third finger into place, somewhere around an F or a G, like this. We certainly don't want to slide all the way from first position like this. Personally, I don't like too much of a slide going up to the A, but you'll decide that for yourself. That's where I like a nice juicy slide coming downwards. The slide comes after the bow change. That's something we would never do in classical repertoire. There's a nice slide coming from the harmonic, skipping ahead a little. I'm very fond of that one finger substitution. Make the most of those small slides. Up and back. This is done just with the fingers. The arm doesn't move. One last thought about slides. The slide is not the principal expressive device. The basic expression comes from shaping the phrase with dynamics and rubato, and also from the expressivity of the tone. The slides heighten and add color to that basic expression. At the very beginning, for example, make sure you're starting with a full, luscious tone on the first note with a good vibrato. Then the slide becomes a continuation of what you've already established. Some people make the mistake of adding a lot of slides to an otherwise bland and shapeless performance. That's when it sounds really tasteless. If you're shaping the music, then your musical instincts will tell you when and how to slide. But you still need to experiment and practice your slides. Yes, slides need to be practiced to get just the right combination of ingredients, the right timing, the right speed, the right bow pressure, the right coordination. This is about developing your artistry. Spend the time and energy that you need to develop your slides. You'll be very glad that you did. So, we've talked about rubato and slides and dynamics. There's another whole level of freedom that's part of the style and tradition of this music. Let's talk briefly about embellishment and improvisation. If you've ever messed around, adding a few notes to a melody, changing a rhythm here and there. If you've ever enjoyed doing that, this is a piece where you can do it. Just to get an idea about what the real gypsy musicians do with this piece, I'd like you to pause this video and go to YouTube. Search for Roby Lakatosh playing the Czardas. And for a more extreme version, check out Czardas with the Budapest Gypsy Symphony Orchestra. So, go ahead. Be brave. Give it a try. But start small. Find just one or two places where you can add a couple of notes or change a couple of notes. Once you start getting comfortable, you can do more. There are lots of performances on YouTube that you can listen to for ideas. Here's how I might play it.